Hello, movie lovers. Welcome to Rossie Talks. I'm sitting here with John DiGregorio for Movie Lovers Unite. From Movie Lovers Unite. We're on Movie Lovers Unite. Anyways, guys, so we're going to talk about Let the Right One In, episodes 8 and 9. So let's get into this show. What's up, John? You saw
Nothing much. I do appreciate my own intro and your show, so that's actually a good little thing that you did there. I do appreciate that.
No problem, no problem. What's up, everyone? So tonight we are going to review Let the Right One In. We're on episodes 8 and 9, guys, and wow, it's so freaking good. So John's hanging out with us tonight. So John, tell me your impressions of episode 8.
Okay, so episode 8 left us off right where episode 7 was, but we didn't have a clue at that time that he was actually confessing to the priest. So in that site, I actually had in my notes, which I memorized, don't ask me how, whenever I was sick for a couple of days. But what I had was this. It was like as if the priest, he was confessing to the priest, right? But it looked like he was also confessing to us as the audience of everything that he's been through, asking us to forgive him as he was going to ask the priest to forgive him.
Right.
And the priest is also laying down the groundwork. Look, man, you've killed a lot of people. There's no way that God is going to forgive you unless you repent from that.
Right.
And you go ahead and stop killing people. Well, I cannot do that. Well, then you're going to go to hell if you don't. Because, well, she's my daughter. Then it comes that whole entire balance of the guilt and shame that the mother laid up on him, on the father to do this and to lay that promise. And so you're like, well, damn, he's damned if you don't, if damned if you don't, you know? So it's like, what do I do?
Right. And, watching this also, guys, we realized that Mark's biggest deal with the whole priest thing is it's to save Ellie's soul. That's what he's concerned about. It's saving her soul, not so much his, but her soul. And throughout the show, when you see Mark have conversations with this priest, you'll find out that the priest is trying to get him to see Ellie for who she is, as he says, the monster that she is, and to save his own soul and let Ellie worry about that herself. Because as we found out, Ellie, if she were not infected, she would be 22 years old, about 21 to 22 years old. So we learn about that throughout this episode. So this is really about, for Mark, saving his daughter's soul. So we also find out that we have Naomi and her partner get some leads, and they end up heading out to the mansion, Claire's house, because they find out that the drug that the people are taking to give them that superhuman strength, like Ellie naturally has because she's been infected, that it's on the streets. And they show up finally at the mansion because, obviously that the pharmaceutical company's name is all over this because the users have found a way to use this drug and mix it with other drugs. So, yes.
So my thing going into this, though, too, is there was 2 times that this thing was brought out with water.
Okay, tell me about that.
Okay, first off, you wind up having this one little thing where the detective is talking. Well, first it goes over to Peter and Claire, right?
Yes.
And they're talking about water. And then it goes into another scene where the detective's like, well, we got to go in and pack our bags. It's going to be a long drive. We have to guess. And then all of a sudden you wind up seeing water in the back of their car.
Very true.
So I'm like, okay, what's the deal with the water? Unless they're if this is going to be something foreshadowing with holy water or something to that effect later on.
Right.
So, I'm just thinking for the last episode.
Right.
But, what I liked about this was how it's linked up to everything on the streets whenever you wind up seeing this being played out. Right. And then you wind up finding out that, I like how she downplays it where she winds up, the detective goes on ahead and asks the question. So you do know that your drug's out on the street. No, that's my dad's drug.
Right.
and I'm not responsible for whatever that happened that's been pirated over the Europeans and stuff like that because I'm not involved in that. And also, too, I wasn't even that close to my dad. And
Right.
then the detective, I like how she calls her out on her own BS though too. She's like, wait, you're not that close to your dad, but yet he left you his mansion.
Right.
So how are you not close to him if he left you that?
Right.
Because next time, then you know that she's full of crap. Because then she winds up saying, "Well, next time that you come to my house, I want to have an attorney. You're going to involve my attorney." So
Yes.
therefore, it shows that she's guilty. But I think that it is not pirate. I think that everything that's going on is within her own rug in her own house. And they,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Yes, because we know by this point that Claire is in business with Matthew to save the house. So remember, Claire had to go ahead and start making her own drugs so that she can save the house. Because remember, the drugs that she has, it takes the pain away from when she has to experiment on like the chimpanzees. And
right,
remember, the more pain that she inflicts on them, this drug that she's invented, they actually get pleasure out of it. So she's not hurting them. And another thing that we find out in this episode when it starts is we see more about the guy Chris, who Claire is using to experiment on. And if you guys remember, Chris is the kid that Claire wanted Peter to turn into a vampire because it's to a point to where she can't just experiment on these chimpanzees anymore. She needs to do this with the
with the
humans.
humans. Right,
So Chris, and we know Chris's name because Peter is just we're finding out that Peter's just a sweetheart. He's an actual loving kid and he doesn't want anyone to get hurt. So he ends up, gaining an attachment to Chris. So that's how we know this guy's name is Chris, which
right.
becomes a problem for this whole situation because Chris may not be around, and he's only there to be experimented on. John, go ahead.
Right, because when you turn someone, they're linked up together so as one body. Because that even goes into the whole entire thing with the interview with the vampire, where you have that whole entire bond with your maker,
Right,
and then the maker teaches you how to hunt and how to do stuff.
right,
So, you know, the like you cannot kill him. He's
right.
basically his son, even though he's a kid himself. So you cannot
Absolutely.
kill him.
Right.
And she's like, "Look, I have to kill him because of the fact that this is just an experimentation. Because it's an experimentation, he's got to go, especially after knowing who we are and what we're doing, stuff
Right.
like that. This person cannot be out on the streets or anything."
And she
And
assumed
right,
that Peter knew this. She assumed that he knew the process that she would have to take. And Peter didn't. He didn't know that he thought that Chris will be Claire will be able to save him and give him the cure and do all that. And remember, Claire's, doing all this brain surgery and she's not a surgeon. She's a scientist. So, we're just experimenting at this point. And eventually later on in this episode, it goes, just all hell breaks loose. And I have to say, this episode is such an awesome episode leading up to episode 9 and then the last episode because a lot gets unpacked in this episode.
it
Um,
does.
yes, go ahead, John.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm just geeked out over the science part of it, though, too.
Right. Yes.
Because it goes into the scientific part of the brain as to what it's like for someone that is born into this world as a vampire
Right.
and how they're connected. Because
Right.
remember, she said the scar tissue or whatever that's inside the brain is actually
Right.
the same formation that's actually within you. So
Right.
therefore, if you hurt, they hurt. Anything
Right.
you feel in touch, they can feel in touch as well.
Right.
So I like the science behind it because it actually breaks down the lore of the vampire lore and
Absolutely.
stuff in a scientific way, and it makes sense.
And I want to discuss that what John's talking about. I actually took notes on this. What it is, it's the polymorphism
Mhm.
glitches, and in the little random sequences of the genome. So we find out that it actually is identical. Chris and Peter's genome is actually identical, and that's what Claire needed and what we're looking for. So the science of it was very interesting to where I wanted to jot that down so that we understand what that is. And so that's a huge breakthrough for Claire. On the other hand, as Claire is dealing with that, we have as Naomi's going out and going and as John says has this exchange with Claire, Mark is getting ready because he and Naomi are going on a date. And one thing we failed to mention last time, John, was we never talked about the kiss.
Oh yeah, I forgot about
We
the kiss.
never talked about the kiss. What did you think? I mean, we knew it was going to happen, but what did you think in, I think that was episode 7, where we got to see the kiss?
Right. When I saw the kiss, I was like, okay, is this guy really into her like he is? Or
Right,
is this halfway in and halfway out kind of thing? Is like, well, I'm going to use her to my advantage.
right.
Because we talked about that too. We talked about how Mark was basically using her
Yes,
for his advantage. And even his own daughter calls him out in this whole episode
right,
too.
right,
And she's actually thinking the same way that I was thinking. So
right.
I'm like, okay, this show is smart. This show is actually thinking the same things that I'm thinking.
Absolutely, right. Because we know
And
that. I mean, she's a detective. I mean, she's working a case that eventually is going to intertwine with what Mark has been doing in his past. So we know that he's trying to keep up with it, but I too was thinking the same thing. I think he really likes her. I mean, I really
I think
do,
so
but I
too.
think, it's a real like there. And Ellie's, bothered, as John said, by this because Ellie loves Naomi and she loves Isaiah, but she loves Naomi as like a mom because she
Hmm.
doesn't have that. And I love how in the beginning of this episode, they show, when Isaiah snuck Ellie in and Ellie comes out of the room and she has this nice little bonding moment between her and Naomi, which Ellie needed really bad because she needs that female, that mother,
Hmm.
in her life. And she really clings to Naomi to the point to where Naomi hosts she teaches a self-defense class and invites Ellie to go with her to that class. And
Right after the date.
oh yeah, after, what was that? That was before the date or after the date?
Yeah, it was gonna be after the date because
Yes,
remember, she was asking, I think Mark or was asking her out, and so therefore they decided to go on ahead and go, you know, before the whole entire deal
right,
training.
right, right.
So I definitely love the date. I like how simplistic it was, where
Yes,
it's like a simple burger joint and
right,
bar, and
right,
how I like how this settlement of, these chefs going out to this bar to eat a hamburger
right,
after
right,
cooking all this fancy food. They just
right.
want something so simple and just to bond with each other. And then
Absolutely.
it was like him, in a sense, welcoming her into his life and wanting her to basically be part of that
Right.
atmosphere.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love that little date. I loved how simplistic it was. I remember, just side note, chefs do that. I remember Andrew Bourdain was doing a show, and as they were following him, he too said that he goes to this little simplistic little restaurant, and they all meet up at this little place. I think it was like a Chinese restaurant that they all meet up at and have something to eat. So I love how realistic that was because chefs do that, and I love that it was just a regular burger joint. He and Naomi getting their hands dirty, eating these awesome burgers. But the conversation that they have, because Mark is really slick,
Hmm.
and he's trying to figure out a way to talk to Naomi about the case that she's dealing with. Because remember, she's very stressed out about this and has gotten comfortable with sharing little bits of information with Mark, and so that helped him with his lead to find out more about Claire.
Right. And this also gives the confrontation between his daughter later on and
Yes.
stuff like that too. But okay, this Mark is dumb. I'm sorry. He's not as
What?
slick.
What?
He's
What?
not as slick as he thinks he is. He thinks he's slick, but he's not really slick
Right?
because of the fact, okay, the girl here, Naomi, she got in trouble for showing a clip or a picture uh, to Claire,
Right.
and that's where she shut the door in her face and
Right.
also freaked out the partner. So then she winds up telling him, "Yeah, I freaked out some rich girl over in the mansion."
Right.
Oh, really? So, I mean, what was this rich girl like? And then she it gives him the background of who she is and everything, and then all of a sudden it just clicks with Mark. And just okay. So was this Doctor So and So? Yeah, it was. It was him.
Right.
And then he
Right.
realized, oh, I went to that mansion.
Yes.
And the other thing that's linked to this, because we were wondering too, was her brother, well, the one who turned Ellie. Now it turns out that something ancient also bit her brother. So
That's right.
therefore,
That's
so
right.
therefore, that ends that conclusion of the fact that her brother do this to her. So now we can actually say it's like an older vampire that bit the both
Yes.
of them.
Right. Which we have not experienced, we have not seen in the show at all, but we find out that it was an ancient vampire that bit Peter. And so he and Ellie are in the same situation because before we thought, that Peter bit Ellie or the guy that was at the when they were stargazing, that it was because remember he was the last one seen with them. And I believe that that's who was up in the tree. So, is this guy who was at the stargazing event, is he an ancient vampire or was he just one of the users? So that's something that we'll
Hmm.
we'll we'll find out because now they thrown another curve in there with an ancient vampire. So knowing who was with Ellie and Peter that night, who is that guy? Was he up in the tree that attacked Ellie? So more questions to be answered, and they have to give us. But so far, we don't know who that ancient vampire is. But it's pretty awesome to know that there is someone else out there that's been living for
And they have a common enemy.
hundreds and hundreds of years. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And they have a common enemy if you
Yes,
think about it, though, because the enemy of my enemy is my friend.
absolutely.
So therefore, I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah, you have this confrontation between Claire, and I know that Mark killed her brother. We're gonna get into
Right,
that a little later, but we'll go into that a little later. But
right.
anyways, I really liked episode 8. Also, too, with the training exercise that they were doing. I'm like, is she gonna rip someone's arm
Oh
off?
my gosh, I have so many notes. I'm sorry. Okay, so yes, I was excited about that when I saw Ellie attend Naomi's self-defense class. And I'm thinking, okay, because at first, I'm watching it, I'm like, okay. And then I realized, oh shit, Ellie's a vampire, like she has all this strength. So what's gonna happen when she has to tackle this huge guy that they're using? And tell them what happens, what Ellie ends up
Okay,
doing.
first my initial thought was this is a bad idea. Like, this
Right,
is a bad idea, and I'm surprised
right.
Mark went along with it. I'm like, you
Yeah,
trust
to
your
let her
daughter.
go.
I was like,
Right.
okay, so Mark trusts his daughter more than I trust her. Okay.
Yep.
So the guys over there, they're doing the whole entire thing where you're trying to flip someone over
Yeah.
in self-defense class and stuff like that. So when it gets down to Ellie's turn, what happens is this. She's holding back her
Right.
strength so the way she
Right.
doesn't hurt him. And
Right.
also to not to alert anybody to see that she's actually different from everybody.
Right.
So and
Hi, Clint. Thank you for watching the show and loving the show. Thank you very
appreciate
much,
it.
Clint. Okay.
But but yeah, and then she's holding her strength back, and then she winds up and she goes, "Look, I know you can hit harder than I'm like, girl. You do not want her to hit him."
I'm thinking that,
So,
that hand situation with the little bully when she just barely just touched him and his hand was disfigured. So I'm thinking too, oh my gosh, what is she gonna do to this guy? And on top of that, how are we going to explain that to Naomi? Is this where Naomi's going to find something out about Ellie? But, it went all right. Ellie flipped this big dude over. And I
okay,
remember Naomi's like, where did you learn how to do that? My goodness, good job. So happy that he left out of there in one piece and his hands weren't crinkled. But I thought that too, John. I thought this is going to just expose, her even more to Naomi.
right, and I'm like, girl, you do not tell her to drop.
Right,
I was like, do not do that. That
right,
you're asking for trouble.
right.
And I'm like,
Absolutely.
then when I saw, and then she goes, how did you do that? And then she's so innocent about it. She's, I don't know.
Right.
So I like how she does the innocent thing to where it's like not even questionable anymore. She's better
This
at
young
bluffing.
lady, she's great. I mean, to play a role like this where she has to be childlike, but then she has to be 22 years old, a mature adult. I love how she was able to balance that out. She did just a great job at portraying Ellie as a kid when she's with Isaiah or she's with adults, and then when she's with her dad, she's mature. It's because obviously he knows, and that's another thing. Back to the date really quick, guys. So Ellie's really excited about this date for her dad because remember, she wants normalcy. She loves Naomi and she loves the fact that, her dad is taking Naomi out. She is concerned with her dad not using Naomi. Like she doesn't even want her dad to get any information from Naomi. So that's the child in her at times, not realizing in reality he needs to get as much information as he can because he still has to protect your situation. Like I said before in other shows, no one's going to accept her being who she is. But the kids are very excited. It's awesome to see that they had a good date. Things went well. And then things start to get a little crazy. Things start to ramp up a little bit because we have Mark, who has now figured out the lead that Naomi has, which is Claire, and he's going out to back to Staten Island or as Long Island to go back and visit that household again, that mansion. And at this same time, before he does this, he and Ellie get into this huge argument, and he says the most horrible thing to her because she's fighting with him over the fact that he's like, yeah, I like Naomi, but I do need information, and she doesn't want her dad to use her. So, what do you think about that argument that they had and what he said to Ellie? Like,
It was
gosh,
crushing.
guy, right,
I'm like, matter of fact, I was like, nice parenting skills, dumbass. But
right, gosh,
um, but this is what he winds up telling you. After you're cured, we're gonna never, when we can never see them again. And then she's like, no, you're not gonna take me away from them or anything.
right,
And I love Isaiah, and I love Naomi. We're not gonna
right,
go. And then that's whenever he said, look, we are going.
right,
She's not your fucking mother or
right,
anything. And then that's whenever they get into that whole entire spill.
right,
And then of course you're gonna pack your things up, and then I have somewhere to go real quick. Then we're leaving.
right.
She goes, well, after things settle down a little bit, that's when she's like, well, can I at least say goodbye to Isaiah then?
Right. And on top of that, he finds out that she tells him, "I love Isaiah and he
Mhm.
loves me and he will accept me any way that I am." And he's like, "Did you tell Isaiah?" And she has to admit, "Yes, she told Isaiah. She told Isaiah that she was a vampire." And that did not go over well because Mark has done everything he could do and can do to protect his daughter, and even her mother giving her life to keep her daughter alive so they can find a cure. So, he feels like, he felt backstabbed by Ellie because that's not something she should have done. So they have this big blowout. He leaves to go for one of his walks, and his walk is actually going out. He's heading out to go follow up on that lead because remember, he went to that mansion when Ellie was first bitten and they knew nothing of what happened. And that's when he went there, they were having a funeral for Peter because remember, at that time, Claire thought Peter was dead as well because the
Right.
dad, had her think that. So back at the house, well, you can tell what goes on from there because obviously it didn't go great, and
No.
and and Mark didn't reach the mansion.
Well, another thing though too, before and things like that. Whenever he came back from his date, there was someone that's actually was trying
Right.
to kidnap
True.
Isaiah because of the
Right.
fact that the mother harassed them,
Right.
the people at the mansion, and it was just people that, matter of fact, is who Mark is looking for.
Right.
And so when Mark comes in, he finds Isaiah out in the hallway
Right.
and like,
Very
hey
true.
kid, what's going on? He's like, he's like, look, there was a man out over here, and he was questioning me about my mom and everything, and I don't know who he is. He said there's a leak upstairs. So
Right.
he goes into the apartment, looks around, nothing's there. He's actually outside the window. The guy is. And then
Yes,
as he,
Matthew.
and
Yes.
then after that happens, that's when we wind up seeing Ellie and them go to the self defense class after that.
Right.
Right after
Very
that.
true. Very true. And
And yeah.
go ahead, babe. Go ahead.
So, okay. So after that winds up happening, then we get into this whole entire deal where you actually have Mark wanting to go out on another walk,
Right.
and then that's whenever we wind up seeing this whole entire thing connect, where you have the character that was trying to break into the apartment, and then you
Yes.
also have Mark meeting him for the very first time,
Right. And
and
that
then
character
clashing.
is Matthew, guys. That's Matthew. That's the guy that works with Claire that showed up, like John's talking about, that showed up because, they want to either eliminate Naomi or, he's there to do something because she's gotten too close to finding out what's going on, okay? And what I love about that scene is I love how Isaiah looks at Matthew when Matthew approaches. And this is a kid whose mother is a freaking detective. So he's got a little bit of that in him. And I love that stare down. And he kind of cocks his head over to the side and kind of looks at him. And Matthew talks to him and is telling him, there's a leak and I need to get into your place. I'm with the water company. Isaiah's not stupid. So Isaiah's like, my mother's a police officer. And Matthew's like, that's not what I asked you. And then we have Mark come into that scene and go and check the apartment, and Matthew's out on the fire escape and hanging out outside the window. But that scene alone with Isaiah, I love that because I love that Isaiah knew at that point something's not right with him because his mother's a freaking detective. He's not
Right.
stupid, you know what I mean? So anyways, I just wanted to talk about that scene because I
Okay.
love that scene with Isaiah.
That was a good scene though too,
Yes.
especially
Yes.
whenever Isaiah has a little bit of that detective skills though too.
Right.
Whenever he's being BS around, so there was no way that he was going to actually kidnap him,
Absolutely.
and so therefore they have to try and do that again in episode 9 to try and
Right.
take him. But I like when Isaiah and them are sitting down in the bathtub near the bathtub,
Right.
and say, "Look, your dad probably didn't even mean it or anything. Parents don't mean what they say sometimes."
Yes.
And I liked how mature Isaiah was to her, because any other kid that around that age would have said, "Oh yeah, your parents can go suck it or whatever," right?
Right. Absolutely. Yeah.
And stuff like
Definitely.
that. So I really liked how mature Isaiah was and how comforting he was to her to make her realize, okay, maybe I should go in and check that voicemail out that
Yeah.
my father had left me.
Yeah. Definitely. So of course, Mark. He's a good dad. He's a good man, and he leaves a message. Calls Ellie's phone. Of course, Ellie doesn't answer because she's pissed at her dad, and he leaves a message. Explaining to her, "Listen, I love you. I didn't mean to say the things that I said, and forgive me, basically." So I am happy that Isaiah talked to her maturely to let her know, your dad loves you. He's a good guy, and parents just get upset sometimes. So that was really awesome that they that little scene that happened. But while that scene's happening, we have Mark who has now been tracked by Matthew at that industrial complex, and at the end of that episode, we see that um, Matthew hits Mark on the back of the head with something. Anyway, Mark is knocked out, and Matthew has kidnapped him and is going to torture him because he needs to find out what is it about. He thinks that their business is under attack. That's what he thinks. So he's trying to figure out who is this person that I keep seeing around town, and every time I already know he had something to do with my friend's disappearance, Rogan or whatever the hell the guy's name was that showed up at the restaurant. So Matthew finally has Mark, and he's going to torture Mark if Mark lies about anything that he's asking. And as that's going on, we have him sending someone to Mark's house to go get or check out the situation, go get the kid, whatever. So, what did you think about the kids hearing someone at the door, thinking that it's Mark? and Ellie sees that it's not my dad, and they go hide under the bed. What did you think about that part?
To be honest with you, I wasn't sure if she was going to go on ahead and kill him right away.
Yeah.
But then I'm
Okay.
like, well, if she kills him right away, she can't find out where her dad is.
Right.
So therefore, she
Definitely.
needs him alive. So she was very resourceful when it came down to not trying to kill him for blood or anything, but try to keep him alive so the way she can locate her dad. So
Yes.
that was very smart on her part. It was also very smart on her part to say, "Hey, look, Isaiah, something's up.
Yes.
So just wait here."
Yes.
Even though
Put
she
him under
said
the
she
bed.
believed that,
Yes.
even though she believed it was Mark, at the same time though she was kind of hesitant. If
Right.
it was just
Yep.
Mark, they would have both went out there. But considering the fact that maybe the way that the door opened or something like that, that doesn't indicate that it was Mark. And
Right,
then they
because she
go,
gave a peek. She kind of gave a peek when she thought it was her dad. Isaiah stayed there, like
mhm.
John said, and she gives a peek and sees that. So at this point, Isaiah's never been in this situation, even though his mom is a detective. He's never been in a situation like this. So, excuse me, she puts him in the bed, under the bed, and they lay there. And the guy comes in the room. He sits on a bed, and she hears him on the phone talking about, basically having her dad, so she can hear a little bit of what the person's saying on the other end of the phone. But he lets Matthew know, there's no one here. I think the people have got away, whatever, but everything's clear here. The guy gets up to leave the room, and as I hoped he would do, because I'm like, don't tell me you're not going to look under the bed, please don't.
I
But
think
he,
he was, but then the stupid phone goes off.
right.
And
And
then
then he was leaving the room, and I'm thinking he's going to leave the room and just leave the room. And then he leaves and stops. And then, okay, please tell me he knows. Well, let me check under the bed. And then what do you know? He sees Isaiah and not Ellie. We don't see Ellie. We just see Isaiah. And when you see Ellie, Ellie is on this guy's back, takes him down. That was just brilliant and awesome. Um, and uses that freaking, what was that mask with the,
like a gas mask
yes,
kind
the
of thing.
gas mask, knocks him out. And Isaiah, knowing that she's a vampire, what are you thinking that Isaiah's thinking at that time?
Like, first of all, he knew she was a vampire, but he didn't know her limits either. But I think what freaked him out wasn't the fact that she was a vampire at all. But I think it was the whole fact that, number one, she used a gas mask on him to gas him. Then you see a syringe, and then you see that thing that they use to put the blood in. I'm like, yeah, that's not a good idea. Then, of course, you see the knife though too. So
Right,
because Isaiah is also asking her too, "Are you a killer?" No, I've never done anything like that before.
right.
What about this? This is a
Yeah,
knife.
exactly. What are you going to
So
do with that?
right. So I understand Isaiah being kind of hesitant after that.
Yes,
But then after you find out that Isaiah still loves her, no matter what she is or does. So I'm
right.
like, okay, so you
Right,
actually have someone that's loyal to you, girl. Okay, I like this.
right,
So
right. And I'm happy because I'm like, thinking we know what that bag's for. We know what she
mhm,
can do, but please don't I know don't do that in front of Isaiah, because I don't want
yeah,
him to see her, in that
that's me.
form and do what she would do. So luckily, she tells Isaiah, "You need to go home. Go home." Isaiah's like, "You're not going to kill him. I don't know what I'm going to do yet. Just go home. I'll talk to you later." So, Isaiah leaves. And remember, they have 20 minutes before the guy wakes up. And the guy wakes up, and you see Ellie sitting there with the gun, which was great. And this guy, which is a big man, is like, how the hell did she take me down? Like, she's got him tied up. He's in a corner, and he's thinking, "You're just a child. You don't want to do this. Stop pointing that gun at me." And she sits there and lets him know, "Oh no, like, I'm not your typical. You're going to tell me where my dad is. Not only are you going to tell me that, you're going to take me to where my dad is. And if you don't, like she told him when they were in the car, um, I don't need this gun to take care of you.
That was
Like,
my favorite
trust
line
and
that she
believe
does.
that." And I just love that scene. I love how she was. I loved how professional she was with the gun. I loved how serious she was. Like, because remember, this is actually a 22-year-old girl, okay, young
Right.
woman at that. Okay, so I love that scene, and I love the scene of her and him in the car. She's in the back seat, and he's still like, still not, this child took you down, dude. Like, what's up? And he's still trying to tell her, like, I don't like this gun being pointed at my head. Like, you could literally, kill me right now. And he's trying to talk her down. I love what she says to him as she's in the back seat, and when he notices, her eyes glow.
Right. So another thing that she does though too that I liked in the apartment part was just kid, you're not a killer. I know a killer's when I see one. You probably
Right.
don't even know how to use a gun. All of a sudden you hear just I
Yes,
watch a lot of TV.
I watch a lot of TV. I
and
love that.
and
Hi,
then
Jojo. Just a second. Hello, Jojo. Thanks for joining us tonight. I really appreciate it, girl. Okay, sorry.
no, it's fine. Hey Jojo, it's always good to actually see you over here too as well. So thank you so much. But okay, so another thing that he like you said, he's talking her down, and he goes, "Look, well, you're not. What happens if your finger slip or anything?" And then all of a
Right.
sudden, she winds up doing this one thing where she winds up taking her hand and wrapping it around his neck, and then jerking his neck up. Because I don't need the gun if I don't need it. I can
Right.
kill you right here. And then, like
Absolutely.
you said, the then after that you see the eyes glow. He goes, "What the fuck is up with your eyes?"
And
I
she
thought to
just sits
myself,
back.
right,
Go ahead, babe. I'm
that's
sorry. I'm
gangster.
sorry. We just stuck to
That's
get into
gangster
it.
right there, though. That's
Absolute
that.
gangster.
And
Absolute. And the way she just sits back, the eyes are glowing, and he's just tripping because she just put him in a headlock as he's driving and lets him know, like, I don't need this gun. And then she just sits back, the eyes glow, and that was just an awesome scene because that was gangster, absolutely. So take us from there, John.
so after that winds up happening, you see the scene where basically Mark is still being tortured.
Yes.
And at that same time, she's coming up to the house, and of course, she's got the guy putting in the code to the and unfortunate thing is that
That's right.
because my whole entire thing is this, I thought that this was going to be in the mansion underneath in the basement area
Right,
somewhere,
yes.
in like a
Right.
wine in like a wine cellar or something like that.
Yeah.
But then again, I remember the lab being there, so there wouldn't be a fit for them to do that. But
Right.
at that time, I'm like, okay, that'd be so 90s or stuff like that if they did stuff like that. So the
Right.
fact that they put them out there where it was like just a port,
Yeah.
basically just your average
Warehouses.
warehouses and stuff like
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
out in the ocean, and
Right.
they're torturing Mark. And so she got the guy, and and the guy's leading her in there, and then at that time Mark is actually being tortured with the
Oh,
with electricity
right.
underneath his feet because they already ripped off his fingernails.
Yes.
So then is like, well, you need to put that gun down, sweetie, so that way you don't, so we don't hurt your dad.
Right.
So next thing you know, she goes on ahead,
Mm,
attacks them. But here's the thing, though: you're expecting to see the outcome of what Ellie can do. But I
right.
like how settled this is, though, Rossie,
Yes.
because of the fact that yeah, you see these sound effects going on
Yes.
within the background itself. You already know she's going ham on them.
Absolutely.
Then you see then all of a sudden you hear the sound of the head being ripped open
Yes.
off the guy's shoulders, and then all of a sudden
Yes.
hitting the floor. I'm like, okay, someone's head just rolled on the floor. Okay,
Right.
I got that. And the way the camera angles were on this, it was perfect to the
Yes.
point where you don't need to show an exposition of what she did
No,
because you can actually
you hear it. You
right.
know it, and you've seen her at this point. You've seen her climb, huge buildings. You've seen her, hold her dad up by his throat when she was upset. You know what she's capable of doing. And at the same time, remember, as Mark's being tortured before they get there, he's in and out of consciousness. So when he's out, that priest shows up in his mind, and at that point, that's when the priest had that conversation, guys, with Mark about needing to save his own soul and let Ellie fend for herself and see her as a monster. And I love the fact that as Ellie is going on a freaking attack, the way Mark looks at her, because he's laid over in a chair at that point, and she's going ham on these guys, and the way he looks at her is it's an amazement, fear, scared for them, scared for her, for him, because remember, he's never seen her in her true form. He's never seen her like that because he doesn't allow her to kill. And that's one thing that, you know, what I like about the show is they don't show her doing that throughout this whole, you know, series. You don't see that up until this point, and you don't see her doing it, guys. You see the after effects, like John said. You hear what's going on. But when she shows up to pick her dad up out of the chair after she's killed them all, she's just blood all over. And him looking at her saying, "Did they hurt you? What happened?" And she's just looking at him like, "No, that's their blood, not mine." And he just has this look of, yeah, like he has to see her for her being a monster and that she did this, but yet helped him. So I thought that scene was just, it was just a really good scene. It
It
really was.
was.
Because he's never
Or
seen her behave like that, you know?
no, because he's also praying. I want to say he's in what's the word I'm thinking of? Latin or somewhere around
Yes,
that.
right, right.
He's praying in Latin because he's scared to death for his own life, like you said, and
Yes,
her life, and also the lives of the people that she's going to be tearing apart.
right.
But then after that, you see Claire roll up in there
Yes,
because of the fact that the mercenary people say, "Hey, look, we have them. You need to come on down." And then of course, they're still trying to piece this thing together. Her and her brother.
right.
Well, why is this guy hanging on to this person? Why won't they
Yes,
give her up?
yes.
And then I think Claire figures out that that's his daughter because there's no indication of how she figured it out.
Right, none, none. And before that, we do have to discuss this. As this is all going down, Claire is at home because Peter, freaking Peter, that thinks that this new experimental person that they're experimenting on is his friend now, and like John says, it's part of him. He owns that person. Well, Peter ends up trying to help Chris get out because he ends up waking up in the middle of the night and hears Chris yelling, "Help me, help me." And you know Peter's really sensitive, and he wants to help the guy out and get him out of there. And so Chris ends up turning on Peter, knocks him out, and goes after Claire. Claire goes in a room, shuts the door, or some room, shuts the door, and freaking Chris puts his hands through the wall and grabs her. Thankfully, Peter wakes up in time to get rid of, you know, him, basically. A part of him gets rid of him and saves Claire. At that point, guys, Claire is like, "I am done. You went against me. You didn't listen to me. I'm doing all this for you. I've given up my freaking life, and you betray me for some person." She was so upset. So when Matthew shows up and lets Claire know, "Hey, like, first of all, what happened here?" And Claire explains, what happened with the Chris and the Peter, and that she's out of there. She's like, "I'm done. I don't want to be a part of this. I'm going back to my regular life. I still have a freaking job." And then he lays it on her and says, "Wait a minute. You need to come with me. I found another vampire." And that's when things change for her. And then we're heading over to the warehouse where Ellie and her dad is, and tell what happens when Matthew then enters the warehouse.
Matthew enters the warehouse, and at that point, you actually have the daughter Ellie trying to get the Mark untied from the chair because she's using a
Right,
scalpel to remove
right,
this restraints. And then that's when Matthew winds up telling her, "Look, honey,
yeah,
if you and your father need to live, you need to do what I tell you to do."
right,
And Mark is over there going, "Don't do it, don't do it."
yeah, yeah,
And then she slowly looks at him,
yes,
and then at that point, he's shooting up in the ceiling because Ellie winds up jumping up in the ceiling and everything. But then
right.
after that happens, Mark actually gets untied, and then he winds up shooting Claire's brother in the head.
Or
And then
Claire's boyfriend in
Claire's
the head.
boyfriend. Okay, I always
Yes.
thought that was a brother connection for
No,
some reason, but
Matthew.
yeah,
No, Matthew is
I know
he's
Matthew
a
was, but okay,
yeah. Peter is the brother.
okay, so that was the
Matthew
boyfriend.
is the live-in henchman that helped the dad out. That Claire actually
That makes
ends
sense.
up
Okay.
liking or falling in love with at this point.
Okay, I gotcha.
Yep.
Okay, but still a
Go ahead.
douchebag. But yeah,
No, absolutely.
but
Absolutely.
yeah, he winds up shooting the boyfriend in the head, and then that's when, of course, Claire comes in, and she winds up. At first, I'm thinking that she might actually do a hit on these guys because she
Yeah,
still has
me
a bunch of
too.
mercenaries.
Right.
Because I'm like, okay, she's out for blood now. You just killed her boyfriend. But at the
Right.
same time, though, it was her boyfriend who winded up telling her to put the drugs out on the street.
Yes.
So that's why she's in this predicament that she's in
Right.
because of that.
Yes.
So even though she was going to lose the house, so it's like, okay, well, you killed my boyfriend. Okay, I didn't want to be with him anyways. I was going to probably break up with him by the time I
Probably.
left the house.
I don't know.
I don't know.
I
I
felt like,
just
because remember they've already slept together by this point, Claire and Matthew, and I felt like they were getting closer. She was still trying to have that shield up, but I do feel like she appreciated Matthew and that she was falling in love with Matthew. And when she saw that he was dead, you know, you can see she was hurt. Um, um, Devastated by the fact that he was gone, because I mean that's who she had to help her brother, and he's gone now. And you then see Claire holds it together really well. Remember, this is a scientist, so you're not gonna, she's not gonna really lose herself too much. Okay. She's very in control of herself and her emotions. Okay. And that's why she didn't want to fall in love with Matthew or like him, because she's very much in control of business and whatever. But anyways, so as she leaves out, she's looking, through the fence, and she sees this guy who is Mark got somebody in a bag, because remember, like John says, Matthew was shooting the ceiling so that the light will come through to kind of control Ellie, and Mark wraps Ellie up in this bag, puts her in a trunk so that obviously it's light out, and Claire is afar looking at them, and obviously ends up you know finding out where they're at. But before that happens, Naomi has a new partner, a woman that is at the police station waiting for Naomi, because she is with Interpol, and she's investigating two murders that happened up in Canada. They both happen to be sex offenders. And remember, this is Mark's work from early on, when Ellie first got bit. Because if you remember in episode 6 or 7, we see they show how Mark first got started, and he wanted to only hurt sex offenders. So that's who he would, help, feed to Ellie, basically. So now we have this new person. Her name is Rebecca or something, that's entering the scene to help Naomi with their case, because they both have information that they both need, and the fingerprints matched what Naomi had. And we don't know whose fingerprints that is now, but I want to just, tell you guys that before I let John wrap up the end of this episode 9.
okay. So the detectives working together. I thought, okay, this is not good for Mark.
Right.
That's what my first instinct. So I'm like,
Yeah.
okay. And then at the same time, this is going on. Mark is wanting to leave because of all the shit that went down.
Yes.
And he was about to pack his bags up and
Yep.
everything. And he
And
also
they
just
made
got off the
phone
phone.
calls. Yes, go
Yeah.
ahead. I'm sorry. Please
Yeah.
talk
Yeah.
about
No,
that.
no. It's okay. But yeah, I'm going to get to that. But yeah, he makes a phone call talking to her. It's like, look, I'm going to be gone to Mexico because I have some family that's sick. So when are you going to come back? Dude, all you had to say was, we don't know exactly when we're going to be back or anything like that
Yeah.
because of the sickness within my family. So I don't know.
Yeah.
You don't even know how to lie right.
Thank you. Thank you. I was
Red
thinking that
flags.
too. Why would you say we're never coming back? The woman is working on a case to possibly put your ass in prison, and you're saying we're never coming back. That's not odd and strange when she's investigating someone that she finds out is moving all over the place. I was feeling the same way. Go ahead, John. I'm sorry.
I'm like,
Appalled.
no, I was like, this was me holding my phone because I was watching him in the room. It's like, you are such a damn dumbass.
Thank
You
you.
are the not the, you're the most stupidest serial killer in
Thank
all
you.
serial killers.
Gosh.
I was like, at least Dexter got 9 seasons before he got caught.
Thank you.
So so
Man.
so anyways, that's me ranting on Mark for a little bit. But then you wind up having this one thing of where Claire comes up to the door.
Yeah.
He goes, I heard you've been looking for me. And then of course she winds up telling her brother, Peter, hey, look, whatever happens, you need to refrain from whatever you're gonna do because
Right.
I need to talk to him.
Right.
And I'm thinking to myself, okay, are you and this makes me a little bit scared for them
Yeah.
because of the fact that you killed her boyfriend.
Yes.
So even if you do experimentation on the daughter like you want, is she gonna jeopardize the daughter
Right.
the point where she kills her daughter to save her brother, or is it
Right.
going to be where she's just going to use the daughter to kill her and
Right.
say, "Oh, look, I'm sorry, she wasn't a match, my bad," and keep her pinhead brother around? So that's another thought. Those questions were in my head. I'm like, why would you trust this woman after what you did to her boyfriend, even though you don't know that's her boyfriend
Right.
and stuff?
Definitely.
So it's like, okay, so I don't know. I just didn't really feel like that. I just don't know. That scene just didn't really do much for me. Like I
I
wanted to.
I was excited when she shows up. I was like mouth dropped, like oh my gosh. And remember, Ellie and him are really excited because he did tell Ellie earlier, I found her. Like I found who we've been looking for that could possibly give us the cure. She
That was
shows
before
up.
but that's before he put a bullet inside the
Yeah,
boyfriend's head.
absolutely, way before. So her
So
showing up at the end of the episode at the front door, and she's kind of just kind of looking at him and says, I hear you've been looking for me. I was just, I'm thinking, okay, hopefully she doesn't kill the girl because they all need each other, you know. But you just killed her man, so are you gonna be able to trust? Because this has to happen. But how is that going to end for Ellie? How is it going to end for Mark? You like you said, you can't trust her because she's as much as she holds it together. She's not too happy with you guys, you or your daughter. So I will confess that I can help it, John. I finished it.
hey, it's okay.
I
I
couldn't
didn't.
help it.
So,
I
but
couldn't help it. And I know I told you guys I wouldn't, but I
like,
did.
but
And I'm
no,
sorry.
no, it's okay. Hey, it's fine. Here's the thing, I've been sick, so I haven't been able to for me to watch something like this. I don't need to be sick because if I'm
Okay.
sick, I'm not my energy is not going to be there to where it's going to be like background noise, and I don't want it to
Right,
be like
right,
background noise. I have to watch this with an open ear to where I can watch what's going
right.
on. And that's
Definitely.
like with anything. Like I remember someone saying, "Well, why don't you just watch it on your lunch break or something?" Or I said,
Oh,
"Look, I said I only get a 30-minute lunch break for
yeah,
starters, and you
yeah.
cannot digest this, pun intended. You cannot digest this show in a 30-minute time span. Even if you put it in your pocket and you're doing your job, you
Yes.
have shows like this. You have to be glued in and dialed in, or else you're going to be lost." And I didn't want to be lost with this by just watching when I'm sick. So I just use like old movies to put me to sleep whenever.
Perfect. I
but
get that.
but still, I understand why you watched the last episode and everything, and I understand. But me, I'm just savoring that flavor because of things because I
Oh
just don't
my
want it to
gosh.
end. I'm just holding on to that last little piece of steak, that medium rare steak I love,
Yes.
and like I don't want to finish you. I know you're good. I don't want it to end. But yeah.
All I have to say is, bravo to you, Showtime, for whoever brought this to you to make it a series. A great job so far. I love this series. I can't wait to. We'll probably do it next week. John and I will get our schedules together because I have to have him sit with me for this last episode because I mean no one else can talk about this like we can together. So hopefully we'll bring this to you guys next week and wrap it up. I'm sure we will. And all I have to say is that it's absolutely amazing. and I love it so far, and I can't wait for you all to check out the final episode, episode 10. You can catch Let the Right One In Sunday nights at 10 o'clock on 10 p.m. on Showtime, wherever you stream Showtime. I happen to stream Showtime on Hulu. So please, everyone, watch the freaking show, the last episode. If you haven't seen it yet, watch the series. It's really good. John, final thoughts on these episodes before we head into the last one next week?
All I gotta say is this show kept me on my toes the whole entire 9 episodes, and wondering how Peter was tied into everything, wondering how each character was involved in this cat and mouse game kind of thing of when are these characters going to collide and clash.
Yes.
And then when they do, all your answers are actually answered to the point where you actually feel fulfilled watching a show versus having a bunch of subplots that never get solved. This is a
Right.
show that actually has subplots that have meaning to subplots and getting solved within the show throughout the show. So that's something that's rare for a show to do, because I love different TV shows, but when they have several different subplots going on and they don't solve one of them, and then
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, so what was up with that? So we're just going to ignore that one.
Yeah.
So at least with this one, you have a cohesive subplot going along with the main plot line. So I definitely like it.
Definitely, and the characters are great. I love that you love the characters. You get involved with the characters. You care for the characters, and I really love that about this series. And they did justice to the movie, if not better, than the
Most
movie.
definitely.
Let's see, John, what do you have coming up?
So you and I are going to be on the after show for The Last of Us
Yes.
tomorrow night at 8 o'clock Central Time, 9 o'clock Eastern Time. It's going to be a huge panel of people. I got
Okay.
Anthony from ACS coming on. I have in the front row, she's from Australia. She has a YouTube show. She's coming on. I got Tamika coming on.
Oh,
I've got let's see here. And I also have my good friend Dawn from the Multiverse of Geekdom channel
awesome.
coming on doing this. So we have several people talking about Last of Us for this episode that came up, and we are doing this every Wednesday at 8 o'clock Central Time, 9 o'clock Eastern Time. So if you guys want to catch the after shows for that, that's when we're doing them. The first 2 episodes are actually on the channel right now. Look in the playlist for The Last of Us. Of course, it's also too on the audio podcast feed as well. If you're one of those people that, I cannot listen to like an hour-long show,
Right.
well, you can go on ahead, travel, do whatever you want to do, and it's there for you. So there you go. But Friday, I'm actually going to be introduced. Matter of fact, I'm going to be interviewing some producers and stuff like that are part of another film festival that we're going to be a part of. But I'll get into more details and everything later on that, because it's still to be determined on the times and stuff. But that's what I'm planning out on for Friday. Tomorrow night, also, we actually have an Arnold Schwarzenegger versus Stallone filmography of which one was the better actor out of the two of them. I have JTE from the movie Trivia Schmodown coming on.
Nice.
And we're going to be debating about that. That's going to be at 9 o'clock after our Last of Us show.
Nice.
And Frenchie's going to be on for that one.
Nice.
So Thursday, I'm not sure what else we have planned out. Oh, yeah. Alex and I are going to be doing a Mortal Kombat 1994 review.
Awesome.
So
freaking awesome.
That's everything that's going on over here. And of course, that's at 8 o'clock Central Time, 9 o'clock Eastern Time.
Nice.
So that's everything that I have for the channel.
Awesome. So, guys, let's see. So tomorrow night, like John said, I'll be on Movie Lovers Unite tomorrow night to talk about the Last of Us, the after watch party. And then on the 8th, I have Quentin coming on. And since this the month of love in February, Quentin, who is a director, producer, writer, all that stuff, he's going to come. We're going to get to know him while we review and talk about the movie is it's a Steve Harvey movie, the best the gosh, I can't think of the name. Anyways, we're going to talk about that movie, okay? And eventually we're going to have Bunny Stewart back on, guys. Sorry about the interview that we had on the 18th. It was rainy out here in Northern Cal, so her audio was kind of off. John did a really good job at making clips. You can see that on our channel on Rossie Talks, Rossie Barkley's YouTube channel. So she'll be coming back on, and I have some other guests planned for the month of February. Also, guys, I'm gonna decide on what we're going to do after we wrap up the series. Let the Right One In. So I'm looking for other series for us to review. Oh, and also John and I next week also will be talking about the movie The Menu. In which, did you watch it yet?
Oh yeah, I ended
I
up watching
watched
it
it too.
twice.
Did you? Oh yeah, we watched it. I watched it once by myself and once with my man, and it
Good.
is really good. So I can't talk about that. Anyways, movie lovers, we love you so much. Thank you for joining. Rossie Talks, movies, TV, everything in between. For short, Rossie Talks. You can catch John D. Gregorio with Movie Lovers Unite. We also have Alex Haynes for A Town Alex. Go and check him out. He's great. And until tomorrow night, we'll see you then. Be good to each other. Have a great week, guys. Thank you so much. Give me a moment so I can take us out of here.